Hi, it's Ray from Pro Shaper Workshop in Charlton, Massachusetts, and today we're going to do the Wireform challenge, and it's Free Tool Friday. We're going to show you how to make a little bender for making wireforms. So remember also that we have a channel with about 185 videos total now, and they'll keep expanding, and it's a lot of great free information. So if you discover one of my videos, that's not the only thing we have. Go to Pro Shaper on YouTube, search Pro Shaper, or just click the little link that brings you right to the YouTube homepage, and you'll see a wealth of information there. And thanks for all the support we've been getting. So let's talk about this little wireform bending jig. It's as simple as that. And this is the first one. Well, actually, I had one that was a predecessor to this. I might have told this story once before, is that I'd made a crude little one by drilling some holes and putting some pins in it and then welding it and stuff. And actually my first student was Tom Lipton back in 2000 at my house garage, my house shop, in my two-car garage attached to my house. And we made a wireform. It was him and George King. The wireform was of a grill that we'd seen a picture of. Maybe I might have designed it. It's like a late 30s, be like an Alpha grill or something like that, or a French coachwork type grill. It was pretty curvy. So I think I drew it up, and then we did a wireform of one side of it, and then we made a flexible shape pattern and started making the other side. We never got the other side finished, but we used this little bending jig that I had made. And Tom's a full-time machinist, and in the mail, probably about a couple, 3 weeks later, he sent me this. Now it's Tom Lipton. He runs the website or the YouTube channel called Ox Tools. If you're into machining, he's got like 135,000 or 140,000 subscribers now. Always can use more. I mean, he's got a great library of unbelievably good information on machining there, and he's a really nice guy, and you'll learn a lot from Tom too. So Tom made this out of some 5/8 dowel pins. These are hardened dowel pins, and a little block of aluminum. He milled it out and stuff, and it's a nice job, but it's not something that the average person might not have a Bridgeport mill or a CNC mill to do this. I think he did this all on a CNC. So we got a whole lot of these from a friend of mine. It's a scrounger, and he got a whole bunch of this steel. It's 3" by 1", and I also have some 2" by 1". And these weldments were on it, and they were kind of in the way, so we chopped all these off, and we ended up with all these little remnants, and they turned out to be nice little tools to hold in the vise here on that little stem. And then we drilled the 2 holes, and we put a couple 1/2" bolts in here. These are grade 8 bolts. So we've made a bunch of different ones. We tried larger diameter with a smaller diameter, and this one's got a little wider gap in it. And actually the gap that Tom put in was probably the most favorable gap for doing the bending, because it doesn't slip so much. It's about a 3/8 gap between them. So I'm going to go with that. Like I said, we've tried different gaps. They work fine, but the thing that works good on this is the wire won't slip when you go back in there and you want to do a little minor revision. So the average person might have some chunk of steel around. I found this in my scrap bin. It's a 2x2 piece of tubing with a 1/4" wall, and we'll use this to make the little bender. And what you see here, some of the student-made wireforms that come to my classes, I have a whole bunch of them. I just grabbed a couple here. This one was made by Jack, who was helping me out with some videos, and there's a video on how she made this one. And then after we had the wireform made, I had a class make these really nice aluminum panels that fit over the wireform, and then you weld the two together. In this case here, it's symmetrical, so all you needed is actually only half to be detailed out. So these will have to be fit together and weld it, and they'll make a nice headlight pod. The intent here was to make these pods for my Studebaker truck project. So that was a really good class project. Everybody enjoyed making those. And this was a motorcycle tank that one of the students made. It's a pretty big tank, but it's a challenging first-time project. And this was a wheel pant for a plane that a student from Long Island made. He had some, he had to do the drawings first and made that, and made aluminum panels for it also. But these are nice little examples of wireforms that you can make up relatively quickly. And if you haven't made a wireform, now first thing you have to do is make this little tool, and we'll make the tool and just show you the real simple process of making a wireform or bending the wire to make one component of the wireform. And so we'll start out by taking this piece of metal, which is the tubing, the 2x2 tubing, 1/4-inch wall, and anything with a little substance will do, a piece of 1-inch stock or something. It can't be a thin wall tubing, I don't think. It will probably work, but not as good. I would recommend at least like a 3/16 wall or so, something that has a little substance. And I have 1/2-inch stock in stock, just regular cold rolled will work, because these are hardened dowel pins, which you can get from McMaster Carr. These are grade 8 bolts, which you can get from McMaster Carr. These I bought real long ones, or I had these, and I'm going to cut them off after I put them in there, because you only need it about 1 inch high or so. That's more than enough. And then we have a few other little tools. This is a little assist bender. Actually, one of my students made this one for me, Jim from Ohio. He sent it after he took my class. We had one already. This one, I forget whether I made this or Mark made it or somebody, but it's widely spaced, and he made his a little closer. And that will allow you, after you make the wireform and then you find out you have to do a little tweak to it or something, this allows you, it adds that leverage. Everything we do is all about leverage, and these are both nice little tools. And then we have this tool here, which is when you're bending in the little wire bending jig, which you hold in the vise. Say you have only a little end left like this. Now you can grab this with this piece of seamless tubing, and now you have the extra leverage. So we use that quite a bit, and that's just a piece of tubing. It's got a 3/8 ID on it and a 5/8 OD. So it's pretty heavy wall, so it won't break when you bend it. So let's start off by laying this thing out, and we're just going to eyeball it here. We're going to put the 2 pins somewhere in the middle here, about here, and I'm trying to eyeball center of it, and I'm going to put my first punch right here. So just a prick punch, and I got that located pretty much in the center. It might be favorable that way, just a tiny bit, that's all right. And I'm going to grind this. It's got a burr on the end. We'll grind this all up after we get it drilled. So then we're going to take a pair of dividers. If you don't have a pair of dividers, it's the best measuring tool there is. Never use a tape measure. I hate tape measures. Tape measures are good for carpentry, but not for machining work or precise work of any type. So you take and make sure you get a USA scale. Stainless ones are really nice. And we'll take this, we're going to set this at 7/8 of an inch. And that will yield our 3/8 spacing that we want. And we'll double check here. Yeah, Tom's got it a little wider. So let's see. What does he got it at? He has it at... those are 5/8 pins though. That's why. Okay. So he's got it set at 1 inch. That's because they're 5/8 pins. We got 1/2-inch pins. So we're going to set it at 7/8. So we're going to set at 7/8. We're going to put that in our prick punch mark here, and then scratch the surface. That gives us our 7/8, and then approximate where the center is. And if we're off a few thousandths, it's not going to matter at all. So there's our piece. Now the next step we got to do is drill it out, and then we'll bring it over to the welding bench after we drill it. We'll put these pins in, and we'll weld the nuts on the back. All right, I have 3 drill presses. This is my faster speed, smaller drills, faster speed. This one, slower speed, bigger diameter drills, and then for this one is even slower for bigger drills. So I got them all set up here, and we're going to put a little cutting oil on the drill, and never do this where you hold this like this. I use these water pump pliers. There's all kinds of ways to hold down the piece, but the water pump pliers isolate you from it, because if that thing starts spinning around, it gets a little hairy. So. Alright, so there's hole number 1. You can do this with a handheld drill. It will just take you a lot longer. A drill press is an amazing tool. It'll just do so much work for you, and they're relatively inexpensive. These are, I think these were Taiwan-made Deltas, and you can buy them pretty cheap. This one actually, no, this one I bought brand new, and the guy had it on Craigslist, and it was, I think, like $100 or something like that. But I don't know how much they paid new. It was probably $300 new or so, which is still pretty cheap. And this one I bought years ago from a company that had a whole bunch of them, and I got it for like $35. So I've already probably got about 25 years use out of it, and it's still in good shape. So. So if you don't have a drill press, the little bench ones are okay, but you really want a floor model. And one thing you should learn is how to hand sharpen a drill with a grinder, a bench grinder. Maybe I'll do a video on that. That should be a good video. It's really easy to do. Once you learn it, you really feel empowered, because you never have to worry about having a dull drill ever again. And you can get so much life out of drills, and people buy drills and never use them, and then they throw them in a yard sale or a flea market or something, and you buy all these drills for really cheap money. And oftentimes you just need to de-rust them or sharpen them a little bit. So I've got literally thousands of drills, different sizes, all the way up to 1.5 inches or so. Now this is a Harbor Freight drill press. It's actually a pretty nice drill press. We put a nicer chuck on it. We got a 3/4 chuck on it. I think I'm going into the weld seam. Yeah, the weld seam's in there. I guess I didn't plan that out too well. It's okay though. That's why I was jumping a little bit. So there we have it. We got the drill holes all drilled. They wanded a little bit, but that's no big deal. So that's going to be the bottom. That wanded because it hit the. I should have had that as a beware of the weld seam. We should have went through this way. So it hit the weld seam, caused the drill to go sideways, but it's not going to have any impact at all on the tool. So next thing we do, we'll go over to the weld bench and clean this up a little bit with a grinder, and we'll weld those bolts in. Alright, so I changed the plan a little bit. Before I weld them in, I'm going to pre-cut these. So I'm just going to eyeball this about 1 inch over. Get this one about the same. And we'll pre-cut these with a hacksaw. We do have power cutoff saws, or cutoff wheels, I suppose, but I'll just hacksaw them. I like the old school way of hacksawing. So I'm going to cut these off, and the reason I did that is it'll be easier to chamfer these edges a little bit so they're not sharp, and if you bump into something, it's always cut. I get more cuts, and as you get older, your skin gets really thin, and So I try to keep everything rounded, so if you bump into it, you don't get a nasty little bloodletting situation. All right, so now we're going to chamfer this up and clean this up a little bit. All cleaned up. Wrong place for that. That goes right there in the tool holder. That was another video we'd made for free tools. Is check that video out, how to make those air tool holders. They're really nice. Boom. One. It's almost a press fit, so that's pretty good. Then we got that nice 3/8 clearance in there, so that should work really nice. Now we don't want to put any weld up here. We'll put the weld down here. We don't have to go crazy with it. Just a couple little daubs of weld there, and we'll be good. So let's stabilize this a little bit. Always keep a couple little blocks of steel around, like that, and that'll stabilize it. We'll fire up that Miller, my wonderful 1985 Synchrowave, which still works perfect, knock on steel. We'll use a 3/32 rod. The coating on there, I should have wire brushed them. The coating spit. So it spit right on the tungsten. So I'll get the tungsten cleaned up, maybe get another one that's really small. Oversight on my part, I didn't think it was going to spit like that, but it did. So if you got any zinc coating or anything, I think that's that gold cadmium or something. All right, we can make it a little lesson here on how to grind the tungsten proper too. So I got to get a tungsten ground up. We got that big blobberoonie on there, so let me get a new tungsten. This is a simple little bench grinder, and these are tungstens, are 3/32. The 2% lanthanate is what I use across the board for both steel and aluminum. And I'm going to cut it in half with the grinder just by guesstimating where the center is. You break it like that, so it's off a little bit. Now I'll put this one in. This one identifies it, but this one doesn't have the band, the blue band, so but we'll use this now. Use that one later. So to sharpen these tungstens proper, all you need is a little bench grinder. Dust builds up here, I wipe the dust off. This is the way I do it. These are my spinners. You can use just these 2-3 fingers, the thumb and the 2 fingers, or this one like that. That spins it. This guides it. So you put it on the wheel, and just let the grinder do its job. This is a coarse stone. I believe it's it might be a 60 grit stone. If you do it in one spot, you'll wear a little groove in there, and that irritates me when that happens. So you move it around. You have a little quench bucket if it gets hot. So and you're just spinning it like this and guiding it with your thumb. For both aluminum and steel, I grind it basically the same now. So I like to go about 1/4 of an inch back with a super sharp point. When it's aluminum, it'll ball up on the end. You'll get a little spontaneous micro sphere right on the end. With steel, that nice little point gives you a real clean point of welding. You'll get a nice heat coming right off that sharp point. So welded, ready to weld. I have a gas lens in here. With a gas lens, you can actually have the tungsten out an inch or so, and it'll still work fine. But generally, I put them out about 1/4 of an inch to 3/8 or so. That's a little. That's probably 7/16 there, but it'll work fine. It might still spit at us. It might block it up again, but we'll see. It's not the end of the world. I wire brushed some of it off, but I don't think I got it all. It would have been better practice to wire brush it first before I welded it, so, or ground it. Clean metal welds a lot better. And if you don't have a TIG welder, I strongly suggest that you invest in a TIG welder. It's just so much better than any other process, pretty much. It allows you to just get exactly where you want all the time. It's just a really nice way of welding. So here we go. I just secured those in with a couple tacks on, or couple welds on both sides. I got about 1/2 inch on both sides. I'll give that a little wire brush. And now we'll go over and try it out. That 2x2 tubing, nice and substantial. That'll hold in the vise really nice. Now it's homed. Make sure this is not going to rotate. We got a piece of 1/4 inch rod. This is the raw material you make all your wire forms for. Generally I use exclusively this 1/4 inch hot rolled wire. This might be, that might be cold roll, I'm not sure, because usually the hot roll is a little darker. I just pulled this out of the scrap bin. Let me see if I can get another piece. Alright, so I found some hot roll. That other piece was definitely cold roll. It was in the scrap, and I didn't check. See, this doesn't have that really shiny finish to it. The hot roll will bend sometimes kinky, so you got to watch it. And the cold rolled will bend nicer, but it's a lot harder to bend. Because it's cold rolled, it's a little stronger. So here's the whole deal right here is making sure, now say we want to make an arc in this thing, it's all about doing a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. So a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, and you don't want to turn this. You want to keep this on level. If you do turn it, it's not the end of the world, but see, these little increments make that nice little arc. And all these lines, you can interpret the line after if you have any spots that are overbent and other spots that are underbent. And if it's underbent, then you just go in there and you got to pull tight like this, and you give it a little oomph like that. And if it's overbent, then you reverse it like that and then pull the overbent out. So, but the most important thing is that you keep this level at all times, so it's all flat on a plane. Now if it does get a twist in it, you can put it in a vise, and oftentimes you can twist it. It's got enough malleability so you can take that twist back out with a vise grip or something. So let's just make a typical line here that'll be used somewhere. Alright, so that's not really what I wanted. I'm going to unbend it so it's infinitely correctable, very easily correctable. So say I was making the top of a 50s sports car fender or something, and then it'll come into a reverse curve over on this side. So now usually I bend to a drawing. I have a drawing and I bend very carefully to make it fit that drawing. So this is the challenge, is to, now you see I have screwed up. See how I've got that, and that's good, so I can show you how to fix it. So now let's take this and we'll reverse the direction here a little bit. Let's try the This is where this can come in handy. We'll get a little more leverage now on that. We'll bend this up. So that's, well, then overdid that one. We'll bring this one back. That's a typical line on a top of a, say, a front fender on a 50s Italian sports car. And there's the fender hump, and then it goes into where the hood would be, and it goes up and then reverses itself over there. And this would come down straight like that, then a smaller radius down here. So that would be one little station in the buck that you were making, if you were making that type of buck. So now I have a little twist in this. See, it's not sitting flat. It's only because I'm talking and not concentrating enough. So now I put this in the vise like this, and we'll give this a little twist. We'll get that looks good there. We'll get probably a vice grip or something, or actually a dolly would do it, but I got this big piece of metal right here. I got to get that tighter. Anything with some mass here. Fulcrum, lever. It's always fulcrum and lever. Let's see how that did. Alright, so that straightened it out pretty good. It's still got a tiny little bit in here, but you get the idea. So that's the beginning of a whole car buck. You would need a drawing to work with. You can eyeball this stuff too. Sometimes just do a simple buck like a gas tank or whatever and just eyeball the whole thing. So the way you do it is what I call the primary line. So if you're doing this motorcycle tank, you will do this primary line right here, and the other primary line is the base. Now the base can be made in two pieces. This would be the bottom view and the side view, and this would be the front view, and this is the widest point here. So you could do those actually free form by no drawing whatsoever. Just make sure the line is nice and clean like that, and now you have a distance for the side profile, your primary line, and then you want it to make the bottom line here, and you'd make that, and you come and connect to here, and now you can just take a piece of cardboard, trace it, and then you flip it over so that you can get an opposite symmetrical side, and then you got that. So now you have the primary line of the bottom and the primary line of the profile, and then this is one of the most important primary lines. This would be the front view line. That's your widest point that you would see. So you put that in, and again, that's to make it symmetrical, you just copy that curve, and you're connecting these points from here to here, and you can measure up so that you're always at the same points when you do it. This one's off a little bit, and you get that in. Then you can do a primary line down here showing the taper of what you want to do with the taper. You put that in there, and then all the other lines all have to follow suit. And you can do it. I use a 3/16 stainless wire that I run like this. I'm using a stainless ruler right now, but that's just to show the continuity of the line. So as you make these, they all have to be touching, and if they aren't touching, then you have a problem. The problem would be one of these would be proud going out or weak going in. So it's a really fun process to do it. You can modify it really easy. If you wanted to make a cove in here or something, you could now make the cove and weld it on the inside, then cut these out, and you could define that cove It just, the possibilities are endless. All right, so I hope you accept the challenge of making a wireform. It's a really cool process, and once you make one, you'll be totally addicted to the process. It's a creative outlet that it just keeps giving dividends, and you'll just love it. So give it a shot. It's super inexpensive. All the materials here are probably like $5 to make this, and it'll literally last well after you're dead. Your great-great-grandson might find this hanging in your barn or something. Say, wow, look at that, Grandpa did that, you know. So it's an awesome piece. They don't rust. They'll last forever. Give it a shot. Try it out. I hope you learned something from this video. It's Ray from ProShaper, and please like, subscribe. Give us the comments, and remember, metal is clay. This is Free Tool Friday at ProShaper Workshop. Ray Chalene, thanks for watching. Spread the word.